as the curtain continue to get peeled back and the layers get
A
peeled,
lot of layers.
we're gonna see just how crazy, how Ocean 12, Bernie Madoff-esque,
This is
Enron-esque FTX really was.
Stack my money up like Legos. Bet me when I say so. Pull up in the spotlight. Pull up in the
What's up, world? It's your boy Brandon Copeland, aka Professor Cope, and you know, as always, I got my dog with me, Ross Mack, rocking the Bulls hat today, brother. Ross, first and foremost, how the Bulls doing, man? How you liking what they've been putting together this year so far?
We're trying to figure it out. You know what I mean?
Oh.
We done lost a few, you know, but
Okay.
any team is always better than any team that come from where you come from. What's that? The Wizards. So you already know we straight.
Listen, man.
But no, you got DeRozan still on his MVP shit.
Okay.
Zach LaVine coming to his own, but I ain't gonna hold you. I'm loving Dragic off the bench. Mario Dragic. I seen him at Soho House a couple weeks ago. I had to tell him, I say, bro, you balling. So we'll see. I think that might have been the little kick me he needed to get his shit even going in the next degree.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta hear it from the people, man. Sometimes you gotta hear it from the people. But listen, man, we're gonna cut right to the chase. We're not gonna beat around the bush here, man. We gotta talk about probably what will turn out to potentially be one of the largest heists in history, right? But I'm not gonna skew your perspective here. I want to understand what's going on with FTX, right? I've heard about this futures exchange, this cryptocurrency exchange. I mean, you got the Miami Heat arena named after it. You got Major League Baseball umpires wearing the logo on their uniform. You got the logo on NBA floors now. You got NFT partnerships, some of the top stars in across sports, the Steph Currys of the world, the Tom Brady's of the world, the Naomi Osaka's of the world, right? Like, all supporting and pushing FTX, right? You got Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank being on record as one of the advocates, and I don't want to say one of the largest investors, right? But one of the advocates for it, and also talking about how Sam's parents, the CEO, Sam Bankman-Fried, his parents were compliance officers, and how that made him feel safe investing money with him, right? So when it comes to FTX, let's just start at the beginning. What is FTX?
All right, real quick, man, if you're enjoying the show, make sure you follow and subscribe Money Music Culture on all platforms.
Yeah, so FTX is one of the largest marketplaces, was one of the largest marketplaces. And what I mean by marketplace, gives you the ability to buy and sell as well as hold your cryptocurrency. And so when you look at what's going on with FTX, it will end up being one of the biggest blunders, biggest black eyes on the overall crypto market, right? I think that Sam Bankman-Fried, that being the CEO of FTX, had positioned himself as the king of crypto, right? You know, he went to MIT. His whole team effectively went to MIT. And for the most part, most people's like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. Let's get it, right? And unfortunately, we will come to see that, in fact, he's being investigated. So I won't necessarily say it's fact, but all, signs are pointing to the fact that he did a lot of fraudulent things. And, we'll get into that. So let's actually talk about how, what ended up happening, right? So at the end of the day, cryptocurrency is one of the things that people love because there's no centralized government. There's no true oversight. And at the end of the day, there is good and there's bad that comes with that. And we're about to talk about the bad, right? Because what FTX is they effectively operate as a bank, but don't have the protections of a bank. So right now, if everybody had their money in their Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase bank account, and if everybody at the same time said, yo, I want to get my money, right? Chances are they're not going to have everyone's money on hand, right? But because it is FDIC insured, you for sure will get your money at some point, right? Or, God forbid, Wells Fargo just goes belly up. Well, guess what? Up to $250,000, your money is insured. You'll get it back. Now, the difference with FTX versus a normal bank is that there's no FDIC. There is no regulators. There's no there are regulators, but there's no, U.S. approved, kind of SEC,
Check
CFTC, like
system and
all
balance.
these things. There's no true checks and balances. There we go.
Yeah.
When it comes to this, and so one of the interesting things that we see with FTX is like, wow, a lot of people are losing their money, right? Because at FTX's height, it was valued at $32 billion, right? Like you said, Mr.
Well, hold on. Before we get into the valuation, real quick, because I want to make sure we don't lose people. So, like you mentioned, if all of us in the traditional bank, whatever bank it is, right? Like, so just the way banks work, right? Like you think, because some people don't, might not be aware of this, right? Like, so Ross Mac, you go in, you put $100 in. I go in, I put $100 in, and all our neighbors do it. But now, when one of our neighbors comes and say, hey, like, I want to borrow 100 so that I can go buy this house or I can go buy this car, right? The banks are ultimately just taking people's money, moving it around, charging interest rates on it, but they don't necessarily take all of that money stored up in a vault like you think, as a young kid growing up, right? They're taking that money and then they're going and investing it, leveraging it. So what you mentioned earlier is if everybody came at the same time, was like, you know what, all of us need our $100 back. Well, damn, we done loaned out 100 to him for his mortgage. We loaned out 100 to her for her car, and so on and so forth. And the bank can't actually afford to give it back because they've actually pushed that money out. Now,
Yeah, what that would be called is a bank run, but yeah.
bank run, exactly. So now, you brought that up in relation to FTX, and then like you said, they were at one time getting into the valuation. They were at one time what, $32 billion, and I'm gonna let you take it from there.
Yeah, and so what ended up happening was that I had a whole timeline because this shit happened in a week, right? Literally go from $32 billion to damn near zero, right? So literally call it November 2nd, right? You had a reputable website called CoinDesk. They had a headline talking about Alameda's balance sheet. Now Alameda is effectively the sister company of FTX. Now we'll definitely get into that. But on November 2nd, CoinDesk was like, yo, they headline, I mean, their balance sheet is a little off maybe, right? And then, 4 days after that, so November 6th, you had, anytime credibility is lost in the crypto space, sometimes, we've saw massive blunders with like the Luna coin, right? How it just went to zero, billions of dollars of value just wiped out at thin air, right? And so what you had here was another competitor, right, who at one point was supporting their business, right? We're talking about Binance's CEO, Changpeng Zhao. We'll just call him CZ for now. He effectively, through the power of his Twitter fingers, led FTX to go down. Like he literally hit, when people talk about Elon or Donald Trump Twitter fingers, CZ fingers is right up there. You feel me? Like, so CZ tweeted something, and I probably should find the exact tweet, but he literally just tweet, yo, I'm selling all my FTT tokens. So this is November 6th, right?
Now
Literally
this is
right
after them. Sorry, this is after
oh,
them.
let me talk about what
Go ahead.
FTT tokens are. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So FTT tokens are FTX's tokens. Now,
Okay.
when we talk about crypto, FTX effectively made their own currency. And their currency kind of lived and breathed by the success of FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried, right? Sam Bankman-Fried, the CEO of FTX, right? And so when you have Binance, their CEO, Changpeng Zhao, who Binance is the largest marketplace for crypto. It's the number one, right? And when you have him tweeting like, yo, I'm selling all my shit, that was $530 million worth of FTT, right? And so what you had then, once again, we talk about the CEO of Alameda, a young lady, which we'll get into later, and they're talking about, Sam Bankman-Fried was involved romantically with her. It's a whole lot of shit. We're gonna talk about it. But then she like, okay, cool, I'll buy all your FTT tokens, for $22. Then you get the next day, November 7th, Sam Bankman-Fried literally, tweets out, look, all the assets are fine because what's happening, anytime you have a reputable person in the crypto space like Changpeng Zhao, who runs the number one marketplace, right? 24-hour trading is the biggest, right? When you have a person say, I'm selling all my shit, and he didn't just say, I'm selling all my shit. You know, he questioned a few things, right? Like Twitter get to going. So now in this same realm, you have other people being petrified. They also, right? A bank run, right? The reason we brought up the bank run is because most people want to get their money out before there's no more money, right? And we'll get into why there was no more money. But, you know, so you had to have the CEO of FTX, right? Once again, FTX is the parent company of, they had a lot of other little subsidiaries, but Alameda is the big one, right? He like, look, yo, all our assets are fine, bro. We good. The very next day, FTX, the next headline, Binance is about to buy FTX. They're about to give them a rescue package, right? Because what's happening at this moment from Changpeng Zhao's Twitter fingers, they got a bank run. $5 billion worth of withdrawals happened in one day. $5 billion of withdrawals. That's massive, right? That alone was about to cripple their business.
Shoot, should
Then,
cripple anybody's.
yeah, then the very next day, Changpeng Zhao, right? Binance pulls out of the deal. I'm trying to find the tweet, but he literally. Oh yeah, go to it.
Nah, yeah. Let's break this down because I want to make sure I'm following you, right? So, all right. So, 2019, FTX becomes a real company. So, in 2019 to 2022, they've amassed this $32 billion valuation, right? On one day, I think you said November 6th, but it doesn't really matter the day. But one day, in a short period of time, CZ says, "Hey, I'm selling all my stuff."
Yep.
The next day, he says, "Is the next day is when they started trying to buy it, or the next day is when they were already in the midst of buying it?" And then CZ kind of sent that tweet out.
So we got a few tweets. So first tweet,
Okay.
We'll say it like this. November 6th. Changpeng Zhao's CZ tweets, I'm selling all my FTT. November 7th, you got Sam Bankman-Fried, the CEO of FTX, saying, nah, it's all good, y'all. All the assets are fine. After, Alameda said they're going to buy, CZ's FTT tokens, right? So November 6th, the first tweet. November 8th, right, is after they started getting people withdrawing their money, $5 billion of withdrawals, FTT token lost $2 billion of valuation in 24 hours, right? Then there was supposed to be a supposed lifeline from Binance. So it started with Binance, once again, the CZ, and it damn near was going to end with Binance bailing them out, right? And so some people think, this shit was done on purpose. Yo, CZ, he did this shit on purpose, right? So CZ like, yo, we going to buy it, pending due diligence. And this when he ripped they shit apart. I really want to go to Twitter to bring this up so I can read this shit because it's in the past week, right?
Yeah.
But like the way he ended up saying, you know what, we don't want to do the deal was one of those things where it was just like, yo, he a Viking, right? Like the way he pulled out the deal, because the thing about crypto, everybody says is, oh, you know what, there's no transparency, right? And CZ like, yo, we actually want to be transparent, right? And so he actually put out a note in the spirit of transparency because, let me see, I'm on his Twitter now, right? In the spirit of transparency, he was like, yo, I just had a call with SBF. Long story short, don't trade their coin. Don't get left holding the bag. Some people think that we did this on purpose. Look, this is not a win for us. So he put out a whole note to his company that he tweeted, which is, pretty insane.
I mean, when I saw it originally, I'm like, oh, okay, this is like the Elon Musk trend for almost the art of war, right? Like there's different ways.
Bro, he went crazy.
Yeah, it's literally like the art of war
for sure.
So like instead of me saying, okay, listen, I want your company. All right, well, how do I get it cheaper? Well, let me cause some skepticism around your company. And so for me, originally it was like, all right, like Binance was looking to buy it. Then a few days later, like literally only a few days later, it was like Binance drops out of it that quickly, right? Like,
Yeah.
whoa, all right. So now you got that skepticism, those questions of like, all right, cool. Like, is this their ploy really quickly to um get this valuation extremely low, or to knock one of their competitors out of the space where now you have to do more business with them specifically, right? So I guess that's my original thought, right? Like, oh, is this some art of war stuff, right? But
Absolutely. Like,
it
I'm
looks
gonna
like,
say that too. Like, I can't even find the tweet. He might have deleted the one, but nonetheless, so he literally was like, "Yo, I was on the phone with SBF, and after we do our kind of, due diligence, our forensic accounting, we can't get comfortable owning the assets." Then everything went panic mode. So it went from people thinking that there was going to be a deal to then people actually saying, "Yo, full blown panic mode." Um, so at November 8th, people were thinking Binance is going to bail them out. November 9th, oh shit, Binance is backing out of the deal. November 10th, FTX get their assets frozen, right? Meaning now when we talk about a bank run, all assets are frozen. You can't withdraw none of your money. So now you mad, right? Then November 11th, they file for bankruptcy. November 12th, SBF steps down. Well, no. November 11th, he also stepped down. Then the shit really gets interesting, right? Because what ended up happening is they realized that it was a lot of fraudulent shit going on. And so, Cope, you did a great job when you was talking about how banks operate, right? A bank gonna operate, everybody put their money in. Well, guess what? The bank gonna take our deposits, and then they promise us a return on our deposits, right? Pennies, 0.016%. But then they also take our deposits and then go loan them out to other people. And that's how they make their money, right? And so what ended up happening is fraudulently, one of the things that we learned with FTX is that one, he didn't know what the fuck he was doing because he put out a whole 22 tweet apology. Yo, I just want to apologize to everybody. I thought I knew about leverage, right? Because the thing that you was talking about with FTX, their platform, they allow people to buy crypto on leverage. They're buying futures. They doing day trading, all this shit, right? Well, they thought they weren't levered when it in turn shown that they had a ton of leverage. Now, what that means from a liquidity standpoint, right, is just how much money you're going to have on hand to actually match that of, the deposits you're supposed to have. Well, they thought they were having 1-to-1, right, dollar for dollar, but instead it was less than a dollar, like 0.8%, which meant like, 0.8 times, which meant that, for every $100, they only had $80. So if it's a true bank run, guess what? The $20 that they had, the other people that had $20 won't get their money, right?
Right.
And so what you end up having is not only are they doing that, right? Well, not only did he not keep his books good enough from a compliance standpoint, but then what you really had was that he was commingling funds, taking money from this company, funneling deposits from here into another company where they were then, making other loans. So what ended up happening is that they found that Sam Bankman-Fried, built a back door into their system. And what I mean by a back door, right, was that he built a back door in their code that allowed him to be able to take up to $10 billion without it triggering any alarms. So what you had was this guy being able to take money out and use it for God knows what. And so what's happening right now after he stepped down from CEO, and then you could get into the hack part because he was saying this is going to be one of the biggest. But talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild to think about. I mean, you got a number of different like, I don't even want to say conspiracy theories, a number of different theories of what happened here. But as you mentioned, right, like, so SBF, the SBF, which is the nickname for Sam Bankman-Fried, the CEO of FTX, he basically, as you mentioned, built in code so that he could take money out, and within this code, to everybody else, everything would look the same. Like I read that there were certain things where like all financial records would still look the same, all previous financial records. So it's like, hey, we have these finances. This is how everything looks. You know, people who are looking and reviewing our company, doing due diligence, our accountants, everything. Okay, hey, everything looks like this one day, but secretly we're moving money out. So like when you think about those robbery movies, right? One of the first things you see in all them oceans, right? They go hack into the cameras. Let's make sure everything look the exact same. It's on some continuous feed while the whole time we really are moving around. We're taking things out, but the security person watching the camera, they seeing the same thing and everything looks normal to them, right? So the crazy thing is he's pulled the like he set that limit of like 10 billion almost, but again, it's just pretty wild to see that over 600 million dollars of outflows after they claim bankruptcy has just been taken from the platform, right? Taken from the company,
Hacked.
and he's nowhere
Hacked.
nowhere to be found. And like you said, yeah, hacked, right? So it sounds really good, but I want to highlight a couple of things real quick, and then I'll let you finish. It's like, you know, we talked about the art of war, right? And Binance, to CEO CZ, as you mentioned, Binance, they invested in FTX in 2019 when the company began. And so, you know, one of the arts of war is like, how wild is it to think, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and invest in my competitor? Now, you know, part of that is the game, it's the competition. It's like the NFL invests in XFL and leagues that are not on the NFL's level of product, but sometimes they invest in them. Let's help them a little bit and understand what they can be, because eventually we could take them over, and or we can get embedded in to the system, right? So there's a lesson to be learned there, right? Sometimes it's good to get a front row seat into the competition, right? But then two, you know, we've kind of talked about the tweets and how he kind of, you know, and not kind of how he, you know, I don't even want to say he played the company, because he really was highlighting what was wrong with the company. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's not like you could say like he
Doing
was just
fraud. If you're doing
messing
fraud,
around.
it's fraud. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly.
So what's interesting about this whole fallout is that Sam Bankman-Fried was supposed to be the poster boy, right? He got all this wealth and nobody really knew. He was saying that he was doing this crazy Bitcoin arbitrage. He was a crazy Bitcoin billionaire as a result. He built this company and he was just super connected, right? He was a huge donor to the Democrats. So, you know, he was going to the White House to testify, to talk about, you know, crypto. He was trying to help take crypto to the next level. Meanwhile, this guy is one of the biggest scam artists, right? Alleged, right? And it's so crazy because I'll show you how connected this top of the world be, how politics really be, because there's a guy named Glenn Ellison who used to be Gary Gensler's boss. Gary Gensler's the was the head of the SEC, right? Glenn Ellison also used to be a professor of economics at MIT. Gary Gensler used to be a professor at MIT, who then once again was, you know, Glenn Ellison was Gary Gensler's boss, but then Glenn Ellison got a daughter. This is Caroline Ellison. This is the CEO of Alameda, who Sam Bankman-Fried is, you know, involved with, right? But when you really think about how crazy this shit is, right? You get, you know, Mr. Wonderful. Oh, Sam Bankman-Fried's parents were these big time auditors or compliance officers or whatever the hell he said, right? At the end of the day, bro, this shit was on another level of Ocean's 11, right? Like he might go down up there with the Bernie Madoffs because he was taking a lot of dope people money, right? And what he was doing, he was commingling funds. And what I'm talking about is he'll take money from the deposits in FTX and funnel over to Alameda, because in the height of this crypto winter, so call it over the past year, over the past 24 months, crypto has been going haywire, right? Many businesses have been going bankrupt. And guess who's been there bailing them out? FTX and Binance. And so we sit back, we're like, oh shit, Okay, they know what the hell they doing. They got enough money. They want spending trillions of dollars, we'll call it billions of dollars on Super Bowl ads. They want doing this, that, and the third. They got money, but the reality is, bro was just effectively on some Ponzi scheme shit, taking money, investing it in other places, and that is what CZ was saying, right? He said it in so many ways when he was like, "Yo, we looked at their balance sheet. I don't necessarily know, um, I don't necessarily know if we could get comfortable with this, right? They started getting talks of them being investigated, um, and it was ugly. It was
Mm.
ugly. So we're gonna see what comes of this. I think they were saying Sam Bankman-Fried was the second largest donor to the Biden campaign. So mind you,
Mm-hmm.
he taking your deposits and just putting it with Biden. You know what I mean? Like the way he was getting this money is pretty crazy. Like to give you an idea, he was saying, "Yo, Elon Musk, I got $5 billion for you when to buy Twitter." Like he just throwing money around, right? Elon was like, "Yo, how the fuck he get this money?"
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And he was like, "Yo, something is a little off about this cat." And once, hindsight is always 2020, but as this thing was going on,
It's a lot.
and as
It's a lot of layers.
the curtain continued to get peeled back and the layers get peeled, we're gonna see just how crazy, how Ocean 12, how Bernie Madoff esque,
This is.
Enron esque, FTX really was, because you got a lot of people who lost a lot of money, right? We talk about the innocent people, and it's why it's a black eye on the overall crypto space is because what it was actually built for was the decentralization, but at the end of the day, these marketplaces are centralized. The reason Bitcoin was actually made was for this very reason. You don't have to trust any centralized government, any Sam Bankman-Fried, anybody for that matter. Whereas, so you really got to understand that these marketplaces are centralized, and I think this is gonna bring way more transparency to the industry. It's gonna be a black eye, but it's gonna probably make it better in the long run.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next, and where do you go from here? You still believe in the space, right? But it's crazy to think about that. One of the bills that SBF was trying to promote and push, right? DCCPA bill, or the Digital Commodities Consumer Protection Act. This thing is getting rumored to be getting support from several senators, and I'm sure there's probably some donations going on with that. But it would
Without a
be
doubt.
wild to think about this man who is, I don't even want to say lost, potentially, let's say, potentially lost, allegedly stolen, investor and consumer money through reckless, behavior, right? Could get a bill pushed through that ultimately would, change the cryptocurrency ecosystem forever, for good or bad, right? So ultimately there's a lot of layers here. I mean, now, with all this going on, right, as an individual, right, your cousin, hey, Ross, I'm trying to been thinking about cryptocurrency for a while now. I'm seeing Bitcoin is a lot lower than it was last year this time. I'm seeing Ethereum, all these different things. But I'm also hearing that people are literally just hacking and taking money from wallets, right? Um,
Yep.
are you telling your cousin to get into crypto now? Or what are you telling them about the landscape? How are you telling them to look at this market? Do you still believe in this space? Or is this something that you are like, hey, there might be other people with backdoors baked into their
Hmm.
exchanges?
So here's the thing, right? I do the vast majority of my crypto trading on Coinbase. The reason I say Coinbase and I like Coinbase is for a few reasons. One, it's an American company. It's here in the US. None of that offshore shit where they are trying to bypass regulation and compliance, right? But not only that, Coinbase is a publicly traded company. So therefore, they have to adhere to a completely different accounting principles from the big four accounting firms, right? So they already are scrutinized. By being a public company, you have to adhere to the same shit Apple goes through when they are, looking through their books, Coinbase goes through. So the likelihood that Coinbase is allowed to do some fraudulent shit, have backdoors is very minimal. But to your overall question, right? What I tell my cousin to buy crypto right now. Look, at the end of the day, I look at crypto as a long-term investment play. There's always going to be some. There's always going to be a lot of volatility, right? I ain't gonna say some. It could very well be a lot, right? But what I will say is that this will make it better for the industry. We already were in a huge downturn. We already saying that Bitcoin might go to 14K or 12K and then a minimum of 8K, right? If that's the case, I'm telling my cousin to go balls to the wall and invest, right? But not balls to the wall when you're putting your life savings in it. I look at crypto as, anytime you make the investment, understand it could very well go to zero, but if you're owning the best stuff, right, the best coins, that being the Bitcoins and the Ethers of the world, then you're in good shape. I always look at this as a wake-up call where some people are getting too much power in this industry. But once again, this is supposed to be a decentralized, asset class that people are trying to centralize, right? This whole thing that we'll learn from FTX was that, we need some type of regulation when it comes to this. But into the meantime, I'm liking Coinbase. I'm liking buying it, and I'm liking taking it off and putting it on a ledger, right, where you yourself physically own your crypto, right, the actual chain of it. That's another thing. But nonetheless, I look at this as saying crypto we're still learning. It's very new, but it's a lot of bad players in there, and hopefully we continue to weed them out.
Yeah, man. I got one final note from the producers. You know what I'm saying? We in the ear set right now. Note from the producers. And this comes from my cryptocurrency savant. Shout out to Chad. That's the bro right there. If you choose to stick around, remember that you don't own the crypto that you buy on exchanges. Essentially, you have an IOU. You only own it when you self-custody it and take responsibility for your own wealth. 3 viable options are a cold card, a ledger, and a Trexer. And then also potentially having multi-sig or multi-signature is also an option. So the final thing I want to say, Trezor, I know I might mispronounce things, but shit, figure it the fuck out. If you really want to hold your money, figure it the fuck out. All right, this is an example of the ethos of crypto versus market evolution. An event like this sounds the horn for regulators to create a framework around the market before any other institutional investors will get involved. The issue with this from people within cryptocurrency is that regulation is in essence a mechanism for more trust within the ecosystem, but decentralized finance or DeFi, which traditional finance and regulators are threatened by, does not need to operate with trust at all. While the FTX collapse is an indictment on the crypto market for many and will most likely slow the adoption curve or turn people away completely, it can't be understated that FTX operated like a centralized exchange instead of a pure mechanism for peer-to-peer transactions. A lot of altcoins will lose 99% of their value, and even though some things are already down 80% or more, it does not mean it can't still lose 99% of that remaining value. So, don't just think that this is an automatic bottom. Liquidity will dry up most likely until the next bull market. If you are an advocate, this could be an opportunity to accumulate over time. If you oppose the market all these years, this is the example you will reference for years and years to come of the dangers in this market. So, wanted to make sure I got that in from our crypto savant here. But ultimately, it's a lot going on. We're gonna stay close on this story. Ross Mack will keep us updated on like you said, is this Ocean's 14? Are we watching Ocean's 14? Really, we need to go ahead and try to get rights to do the documentary real quick. You know what I'm saying? The big the big SBF.
We got to get Jonah Hill. We got to get Jonah Hill to play SBF.
Yeah, that's a perfect match right there. But yeah, man, Ross Mack, I appreciate you as always, brother. Money, music, culture. You know what to tell the people to do, man. You know what to tell people to do.
Y'all already know, man. Thanks for listening. You already know. Make sure you like, subscribe, tell your auntie and your cousins, share with them. And you already know. Till next week, tune in. Let's get it.